biblically won the championship. Alex Ferguson, can you blame the man for going out of his mind temporarily?
Hi everybody, how you doing? A very warm welcome to Ali Beg AB TV this Thursday night. This is my exclusive interview with Aberdeen chairman Dave Cormack. The interview is coming up very shortly. It's about 35 minutes long. So the plan tonight is to let you watch the interview and then we'll open the live chat so that after the interview we'll stay on air and you have your opportunity to react to what Dave has to say, and then we'll just have a chat amongst ourselves and see how it goes. So there's absolutely no time limit to tonight's programme. In the interview, Dave and I discussed a number of topics, including our Scottish Cup win and the importance of it, ticketing, the new strategy at youth level, Yimmy Talene, amongst many other things. So I really hope you enjoy the interview. Just before I do that, as you know, I am very fortunate to have sponsors here on ABTV, and I would just like to take an opportunity to thank Mike Logie and Craig Cameron, both at Saltire Energy, who have in the past few days renewed their sponsorship with Ali Beg ABTV. Saltire have been with me now for a number of years, and their support has been unwavering. And with their support, it means that we can continue to build this channel. So my thanks, as always, to both Mike and to Craig for their continued support. Right, let's get the chairman on. Welcome to Ali Beg ABTV. For the very first time, Aberdeen Football Club chairman, Dave Cormack. Hi Dave, it's fantastic to see you. Thank you so much for jumping on. How are you keeping?
Good, Ali. Yeah, just it's really roasty toasty here in Atlanta. Yeah, it's pretty hot, but at least we got air conditioning, and well, you knew what that was like when you were out in Qatar. I'm doing fine. How about you?
Yeah, I'm doing absolutely fine. Thank you so much. Cracking on, getting on with it, feeling much, much better considering where we were a year ago. So yeah, doing just fine. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I'm very grateful. So I've got a number of questions for you. So let's go back to the Scottish Cup win. Let's start with that. How significant do you feel that the victory is not just for the club, but also in terms of its wider impact on Scottish football, particularly in showing that clubs outside the Glasgow Two can achieve major honours?
Well, obviously, Ali, as we all know, compared to, maybe let's go back to the 80s, the kind of pre-Bosman and television deal days, things have changed dramatically, with the likes of Celtic, earning more money in Europe last season than was distributed, I think, in Scottish football. So I think it was a major boost. I actually came off of a Zoom call earlier today, and I think that the folks at Scottish Gas that sponsor the Scottish Cup were absolutely delighted because it raised their profile and attention significantly compared to, if somebody's going to win the Scottish Cup every year. So I do think it's good for Scottish football, definitely. It's great for Aberdeen and the city because it's been too long, Ali. 35 years has been way too long.
There were some fantastic scenes, obviously, at full time, and some of the footage online during the penalty shootout itself was just fantastic to watch, watching people's emotions and how they were handling it. Talk me through your own emotions when Dimitar Mitov saved Alistair Johnston's penalty for us to win it.
Well, like I've said to you before, Ali, you try not to get too high when things go incredibly well. You try not to get too low when the troughs are there, because you got to keep a semblance of strategy, direction, things that we're overall trying to achieve. And listen, we all go through that. But Ali, I had a good feeling during the week. I said it to a number of people. I was almost loath to say it, but I had a good feeling, Ali, that if we were to put in, a shift for 90 minutes, and as it turned out, 120, that we could give them a real challenge there. And going into penalties, after Shinnie put that first one in, I told him later, I thought that thing was going over the bar. But the penalties were, and they did practice them. I think they practiced them, but I'm not sure many of them scored. So saved it for the final. But when my first reaction was he off the line? That's
yeah.
But as soon as he kind of went up like that, and Rudolph did, and it was confirmed. I was just so delighted for all of us. I mean, all the fans. Boy, it was just, and I watched during the game. I was constantly drawn towards all our fans. I just couldn't believe the noise, atmosphere. Almost everybody wearing red, and so. And kudos to the guys at the club have embraced the fan engagement, the ultras, and the whole experience. Because without that, we maybe wouldn't have pulled off the numbers that were there, but also the colour and the noise as well, Ali. I mean, listen, you've been around the club long enough. That sweetie rustling that took place maybe decades ago is gone, eh?
Yeah, 100%. It was an incredible spectacle. And I must admit, Dave, I was like you. I was so drawn to the crowd. Again, talking about the online footage, just the reaction when we win the penalty. When we win the cup with the penalty. But when we equalise, I think those scenes is something like I've never seen before. And it's something that I've said, Dave. I think the big difference for me personally, in terms of the two sides winning the Scottish Cup, when we won it, there were so many people around me in tears of joy. And I don't think that if the roles had been reversed and Celtic would have won it, I don't think Celtic fans would have been in tears of joy. And I think that was the big difference. But can I ask you, in the build-up to the game, it's common knowledge that Sir Alex Ferguson sent a video message to the lads. Whose idea was it to do that?
Well, when we obviously get to the cup final, when we talked about who we wanted to kind of invite, then obviously first kind of on the list to a degree is Sir Alex. I've been fortunate to get to know him quite a bit through unveiling the statue and so on. And we sat down, a few of us, including Jimmy, and I reminded them, I said, you remember, I remember when Sir Alex invited Jock Stein to the Gothenburg,
yeah,
right, as an advisor, ambassador, as a courtesy. And I always remember, and it's well documented with Sir Alex, that at the time, Jock Stein advised him, he said, make Di Stefano feel like, you're in awe of him and you can't believe you're playing kind of Real Madrid. Get him a nice bottle of Chivas Regal, I think it was, to present to him, and maybe give him a false sense of security about how we feel about playing them. And so anyway, so we invited Sir Alex to come and join the party, to come up to Aberdeen, to go down with the team to the hotel and be our guest for the day. Unfortunately, he already had a pre-arranged family wedding. I think it was in France. I think he might have tried to get out of it a couple of times. But what he did do is he went into Manchester United and did a video for the players and the coaching staff, and he called Jimmy as well. So that was really nice. And he was one of the first calls. I actually missed his call a couple hours after the game. I missed his call. He was one of the first calls, and he was just absolutely delighted for everybody.
The parade was an absolutely fantastic spectacle. I had to unfortunately fly home on that Sunday morning, And even when I got onto the aeroplane and when the purser was welcoming us all onto the plane and going through the safety, even the purser said, "Congratulations to Aberdeen who won the Scottish Cup yesterday." And there was a few cheers going up. It was brilliant on the aeroplane. It was absolutely fantastic. There was a Dutch guy sat next to me and he said, "Did you win the cup yesterday?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Oh, this is so cool. That's so cool." So it was absolutely brilliant. But in terms of the parade, it was, as I said, it was a brilliant spectacle. But do you think it's given the lads and the management a better appreciation of what the club actually means to the city?
Well, I will tell you that I think the players, in particular the overseas guys, right, the newer players to the club, and even Jimmy, were absolutely blown away. Look, Ali, I thought the Saturday couldn't kind of be topped, if you like, but the Sunday just was a different experience and right up there with the Saturday because, and listen, I was 11 years old when we won in 1970. I wasn't at the final, I was at the semi-final down at Muirton Park as it was then when we beat Kilmarnock 1-0. I think Cup Time Mackay scored in the 17th minute. But the final, one of my friends, Hector Emsley, his grandmother, had a flat on the second floor in Holborn Street. So being a wee boy, we watched the bus because the bus parade went from the Brigade all the way up Holborn Street, and down, and to see coming around the corner from being dropped off to the townhouse, my two young granddaughters, to see the crowds was absolutely incredible. And, it's a reminder of how much good football can do. And in particular, in a city like Aberdeen, the power of football, things that we do as a club and as a community trust, that was just an incredible experience. The other thing I was going to say to you as well, Ali, is that we got, you get to know directors of other clubs when you play in Europe, and the guys at Frankfurt looked after us when we were over there the last time we were in the group stages. Great guys. They came to Aberdeen, and we booked out Mary Cooter House, and the old dining room in there goes back to 1225, and the Knights Templar.
Yes.
So the German board there and guy, just incredible. Of course, Germans, they love their whiskey. Anyway, Axel, who is the CEO of the club there, and when we played them at Pittodrie, we won 2-0, right? He was staying on in Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire for 3 days after it to go on a whiskey tour. Thankfully, he had a driver, right? but we give a gift to other teams like that. It's gifted by Chivas Regal, give us a 5-litre bottle of whiskey. So anyway, cutting a long story short, we got a lovely letter from all the board and the sporting director, Marcus Crosha, congratulating us on winning the Scottish Cup. And they said, now's the appropriate time for us as a board to open the bottle of whiskey.
Very cool.
And got a lovely letter as well from Nasser, PSG chairman as well, and he's chairman of the ECA too. So a lot of people, Aberdeen is a well-known club in Europe, as you know, Ali, a storied club, and I think that the Sunday with lots of families and kids as well. And listen, I just loved, I love seeing the kids.
Yeah.
Last year when we beat Kilmarnock in the quarterfinal of the Scottish Cup last year, I always drive up through Denburn and down through Spring Garden, where my family kind of grew up back in the day, right? And there's a hill that goes up there towards Mount Hooley, and I saw these kids, 7-8-year-old kids with their parents, and they're running to keep up with their parents walking, and that for me is what it's all about. Because I remember my uncle dragging me up that hill and taking me to Pittodrie, And it's so heartening to see almost 12,000 primary school kids members of the club. Uh, I was on a call today, a commercial get together with some of the other clubs in the SPFL. They're just totally blown away that we've got 12,000 kids under 12s as members of the club that take advantage of the opportunity of coming to games and signing for the Dons.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a fantastic initiative. Talking about kids, when you stood on that balcony at the town hall and lifted the Scottish Cup and paraded it to the fans, I'm kind of guessing there was a wee bit of the inner child in you came out on that in that moment. Is that a fair assessment?
Ali, I was just so taken aback by the joy that it brought to everybody that was there. I mean, I'm so proud of Jimmy and the players, so proud of all. I mean, you know, Ali, you've been around the club a long time. There are staff have been there for decades,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the first time in 35 years, the Scottish Cup, the oldest cup in the game. So yeah, I mean, it was a wee bit surreal, but everyone was just so delighted. The Lord Provost, everybody in the city. Just, I mean, yeah, with the challenges the oil industry has been through and is going through as we try and transition to renewable energy, it just shows you what the club means to the city.
Yeah. We'll talk about Yumi in just a moment, but I've got to ask you, Dave, ahead of the final, you very much advocated for a fairer ticket allocation. Do you think it's about time that all clubs are given a 50-50 split with obviously certain conditions attached? So with that in mind, should there be a refreshed review of this?
Well, we've been advocating, Ali, for this for quite a while. That we felt and feel going forward that if a club is capable of doing it, and we are, that we should be given a period of time to sell all the tickets, right? And so, but with timing and everything associated with it, you know, we were faced with a choice of whether it was 16,000+ guaranteed, unless you wanted to pay for the rest of them. And I just thought, you know, this is an opportunity for the city, and we felt fairly strongly that we could take a crowd kind of down there, and there were some people who will remain nameless that didn't think we'd sell what we did, and we did in, I think, a matter of hours actually. So yeah. I actually think that clubs should be given the opportunity, if they want, and we want, to sell 50%. For a period of time, even if it's a week, right? I just think we need to be smarter. But listen, we've demonstrated now what we can do.
Let's talk about the summer recruitment. It's already seen a number of players come into the club, which is fantastic. But can I ask you about the change of strategy at youth level? Has this come about because is there a concern about developing young players to break through from the academy to the first team?
Yeah, I think, and that's the rationale really behind the change that's there. Stephen Gunn has, I think he's gone on Red TV, and it's on YouTube available, has done a detailed interview. And any of your listeners or if watching this, Ali, should refer to that. But look, it's one thing winning under 16, winning under 18 leagues. It's another thing developing players. And the only thing that should matter to us with young players, and for their sake as well, is that are they capable and good enough to get to the first team? So, and I think this has been maybe an issue within Scottish football where academies have kind of been separate to the first team, right? We've had, so listen, without mention any specific names, we've had a number of talented boys that have played under 19, under 21 in some cases, that have just not come through and just not made it, and not just at Aberdeen when they've left Aberdeen. So the important thing is looking at kind of best practices. And what I like to do, you know, Alan's running the club day by day. I'm intrigued by what other clubs are doing and who do we need to bring in to help guide us, right, or give us some input. And it's no secret that we've studied Scandinavian football. Dave Laurie, who's on our board
Yeah.
from Aberdeen. Dave was chief operating officer of Northland. They sold 40 million euros of players last summer. Now, that's kind of their approach from Right to Dream Academy. And they own the MLS franchise at San Diego now. But that conveyor belt of players are all over Europe. So what was missing? So, Ali, part of what BPTC did with their short and sharp consulting engagement that just finished recently with us was give us a perspective of, and a key part of that perspective was to focus on quality and not necessarily quantity. So with an under 18 league, you have to have 20 to 22 players that can play in that, right? So you have to fill a squad of players to deal with that, as well as players that maybe are beyond that to go out on loan. So with the change the SFA have made, it's now an under 17 and an under 19 league, right? So if we want to think about how we get players into the first team, right, then a number of things come to mind. What's the right platform for them? And we don't believe this under 19 league is the right place for boys to learn to play men's football. We think as soon as possible, if they're good enough, they should be playing competitive men's football.
Yeah.
And this goes back, I mean, this is almost back to the future, Ali, to Miller, McLeish, Leighton, Willie Garner, all of these guys, right? Another factor in there as well, Ali, is that our focus, in many ways rightly, in the Northeast, there's only so many players in the Northeast of Scotland, many boys being born every year. And so there's a relatively small pool to tap into there. So what we need to do, we believe, was balance that, yes, with our academy and keep driving that, but also to look elsewhere in Scotland and overseas for younger players that we can get to bring in as professionals. Aligned with that, tying the academy to the first team, right, was a critical decision for us. So we're going to hire, in the process of hiring, a transition coach. And the transition coach will work, and this is, so for example, Jack Ross, who is very senior now at the sporting director level in Newcastle United, they're focusing on quality. It's not about winning under 18 leagues or under 17. It's about developing first team ready players. So this transition coach will be responsible for these boys that are laterally in the academy, 14, 15, 16, through to them becoming young professionals going out on loan. And that transition coach's role will be to ready them for the first team. And they will work hand in hand, that coach will work hand in hand with Jimmy Tilleen and the first team coaches. So already the younger boys are training with the first team. So I'm bouncing around a bit there, but the key thing is this: if we're spending 2.2 million a year, and we are gross, we need some better outcomes because you know it's a significant investment for us. So what we believe is we'll play in the under 17 league, but our schoolboys 15 and 16 will play in that league. So they'll kind of be playing up an age group, which is best practice if you talk to Newcastle and others. Those guys that are ready at age 16 coming in as full-time professionals, right? Our goal is going to be to put them out on loan. The SFA now have these collaboration agreements. So we can have a collaboration agreement with a championship team, a first division team, a second division team, and we could have 5 players going into each or up to that. The thing about an under 18 or under 19 league is one size doesn't fit all. All 22 players are not at the same level there. Some of them should be playing in the championship, some of them. So the whole idea, and again, I talk about back to the future, is about providing a clearer pathway and a direct link to the first team with a coach, right, that is responsible for getting, the only outcome that will matter is getting these guys first team ready. What that means practically is, Ali, is that we'll have our academy, but we'll also be looking elsewhere in Scotland and England, for example, at younger players that are coming through and at age 16, if they're good enough, trying to sign them for Aberdeen.
Is the transition coach already in, Dave?
No, we're in the process of Stephen and Dave Laurie and the guys are at the interviewing process just now.
Okay. Talking about other new hires, whatever happened to this new technical director that was spoken about a year ago? Are you still actively looking? And I know that you were working in conjunction with the consultancy company BPTC. So are you still actively looking?
So BPTC kind of filled that role, if you like, for us for a period of time till maybe 3 or 4 months ago. But what we've done is, for example, right now, the short answer is that we feel that we've got the technical resources in place with the hires we made. For example, Nuno, our head of recruitment, Nuno is a sporting director, technical director by background himself. We have Dave Laurie on our board now, who is working with Stephen Gunn in the team. And so this, and bringing in the transition coach, we feel the work at BPTC have done has given us the infrastructure today. There's a lot of new hires. We need to let all of that bed in, right? And then take a review in about 6 to 9 months to say, look, do we need to do something else, right? Should we add something else in there? But we've dramatically increased our scouting network, right? 3 times, threefold. And we've got 2 or 3 other folks around the first team and development team that are technical advisors, that are full-time with the club, that are providing the performance input in the direction that we feel is serving that purpose today. So long story short is there's no specific technical director position that we're going to hire in for today, because if we feel we've dealt with that with all the other hires we've made, we need to make sure that everybody gets bedded in and we execute. What I will say to you is that the board feels like, in terms of squad planning and linking first team to or the academy, if you like, to first team, that we're in better shape than we've been in ever, and certainly the last 8 years I've been back involved, Ali.
Okay, let's talk about Jimmy Tulane. If you could afford him a report card for his first season in charge, what do you think that report card would say?
Well, that's a good question. I think the report, listen, I've got my own executives in the software company that I chair that as well. And, there's always more to do, right? Because if you give somebody a 10 out of 10, they'd be as well moving on, So what I would say is that I'd give Jimmy probably an 8 out of 10, right? We're trying to play a style of football. Like all I've ever said over this period is Aberdeen teams need to play attacking, entertaining football. Beneath that, there's all sorts of systems and parameters. But Jimmy wants to play a high intensity game, right? And generally speaking, for that, you need a good balance of younger players as well. And so, look, he's been with the club for 1 year and 3 weeks. And so clearly, the start of the season was unbelievable. We probably didn't necessarily deserve to win all the points that we did, but we did. And then we went through that terrible spell where we probably deserved more than we got, but we got what we did. Talk about feast or famine. And then we got the changes in January, right, that we made, particularly with some of the defensive changes as that bedded in, got better. But look, I think the report card would be that we knew this would take 2 to 3 seasons. And the first season, winning the Scottish Cup got us beyond what we expected this year, but that also means expectations going forward are high as well.
Yeah. During that run, that really bad run that we had, were there any discussions with Yimi, even if it was just to reassure him?
No, we never even met ever as a board as we went through it. And all I've ever tried to do is provide encouragement. And listen, at the end of the day, as a board, we're entitled to ask questions about why this, why that, because any board and any business is entitled to can run through that. Listen, he will never use injuries as an excuse, but it was really tough losing Pape, who'd scored 12 goals, losing him and one or two others, but that's not an excuse. No, look, we set about this. You can't keep changing managers, right? We set about this, and the fact that Jimmy came to us with significant experience over 14 years, 2 clubs, was something we were always going to. And we could see, I mean, the players were absolutely buying into what he we wanted to do as well.
Has he surprised you in any way?
No, listen, I think we've got what was advertised on the tin, so to speak. We got to know Jimmy over 12 months, right? Because, it's well kind of written that Jimmy would have been, a strong candidate before, Barry had that amazing run in the league and deserved the opportunity, in my opinion, anyway. But no, I think he is he's a typical Scandinavian, He didn't get too high, didn't get too low. And one of the things that's a real attribute, which, I can wear my heart on my sleeve at times, as you know, Ali, right? But Jimmy, he does not believe that if he has to stand at the side of the field and bawl and shout at players or in the dressing room or stuff, he doesn't believe in that, because he wants players that themselves are motivated to be the best that they can be. And if he has to cajole them to be the best that they can be, they're not the right players.
Yeah, I get that.
And if you take a look at some of the players Jimmy's got playing across Europe in top leagues, it's admirable. It's kind of difficult at times, because you can imagine, I would imagine being at the side at times, he does want to maybe ball and shout, but that's not his style. But by the way, same token, his standards are really high. If you're not performing, he won't be bawling and screaming. You just won't be in the team. So listen, I've enjoyed working with all the managers, right? I mean, I worked 4 years with Derek. I've had coffee a few times with Derek in the last year. It's a tough business, football, but I'm really delighted for him this year, and you could see it at the end of the cup final, what it meant to him. And then the next day in the city, he kept saying to us, I couldn't believe what I saw there today, that open top bus parade.
To finish off, you're quite right. There are a lot of expectations there on the new season, but from a personal point of view, how much you're looking forward to the new campaign, and can you believe it? At the time of recording, it's only 6 weeks away, if that.
Yeah, no, it's less. So I think that, for me, listen, I'm one of those people, I'm always nervous but excited, Listen, the big challenge this season. So you've now got Rangers, Hearts, and Hibs involved in multi-club environments, one way or the other, right? And so there's competition that's there. Jim Goodwin did a great job with Dundee United last year. Some of the other teams are strong, very difficult to play against in this league. But look, we've invested again. we've got Europe again, second time in 3 years, group stages in Europe. The last time we had that was when, Jimmy Calder was here in 2008. So we've got that to contend with too. But no, I'm personally, I'm looking forward to it. We've got record season ticket sales. We're at a record level of under 12 supporters on DNA, record DNA membership. And again, I have to take my hat off to Alan and the team, and others have been the last few years. Scott Gormel, when we launched the DNA initiative 7 years ago, to be up 35% on attendances is great. And I'd never been to watch a game in the main stand till I was 41, and being a beach end boy back in the day, but even when the last game, the Rangers game at Pittodrie, right, that we won 2-1 before, with some challenges in the league. I mean, what an atmosphere! That was, the main stands all standing up and singing. When did you last see that?
Very true.
It's so, no, I'm looking forward to the season. It'll be challenging on two fronts, but listen, that's what it's about. It's, I try and remind myself it's a marathon rather than a sprint. Just glad we sprinted on cup final day, but I feel that the backing of the fans can't be overstated.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me today, and the very best of luck with the new season, and stay healthy.
You too as well, Ali. Thanks for your time.
Lovely to see you. Bye, Dave.
Bye-bye.
So my thanks to the chairman and to everybody at the football club for helping me make that interview happen. If you enjoyed it and you like what you watched, please don't forget to subscribe to Ali Beg ABTV here on YouTube. We continue to grow. And just before I get you guys on, ABTV is also sponsored by Craig International, a globally recognised company with offices all over the world, from the US to Canada, the Middle East, to the Far East and Australia, and closer to home in Europe and Aberdeen. I suggest you take a closer look at eBuy, their digital platform which gives you direct access to Craig International's procurement teams and clients, making it straightforward for you to discover and win more business. If you're interested, get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with them. So there we have it. I really hope you enjoyed the interview with Dave. The live chat is open, so feel free to jump on, leave me your thoughts about what Dave had to say, and then as we go along tonight, I'll read out as many comments as I can, and we'll just keep interacting with each other. Please remember here on ABTV that we like to keep this place a safe haven. I advocate for that, so please be respectful. If you're watching for the very first time, please don't use bad language because I simply will not read the comment out. And if you want to respond to fellow fans, please be respectful of their comments and thoughts. We want this place to be a safe haven. So just to summarise, some very interesting thoughts coming from Dave, a new transition coach coming in to help bridge that gap between the youth academy and the first team interview process at the moment. The director of football role that we spoke about was fulfilled by the consultancy company. And the ticketing I thought was really interesting. Plus his general thoughts on Jimmy Tillin and Jimmy's character, which an awful lot of people have spoken about throughout the season, where they felt that Jimmy wasn't more, how can we put it, wanted him to be more adventurous on the touchline, be more shouting, animated, all that sort of stuff. And I think Dave has sort of helped answer all those questions about Jimmy Tillin's character. So I really hope you enjoyed the chat. Okay, let's start getting you on and see what you've got to say. Thank you for tuning in. There's over 200 of you on tonight, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'm delighted that you're here. So thank you. Many of you have come on and said hi, which is great. Just let me start reading out some of the comments. So there's a few questions that have come in already, which I'm not going to read out just purely out of respect. But what I would like you to do is please take into consideration that there are a number of questions that fans would like to know, but please appreciate that the chairman and the club are not at liberty to comment on at present. And I had to respect that as well. There were a couple of questions that I wanted to ask the chairman. And quite rightfully, one of those questions was about speculation about certain players coming to the football club, transfer speculation. And it is the club's policy that they do not speculate and they do not comment on what is in effect transfer gossip. So I had to respect that. So thank you for your questions. I'll read out as many as I can. So let's go back up to the top. So Simon Roy was hoping to get an update on plans for the new stadium. So that was one of the questions. And to simply answer it, Simon, there is no update. So as it stands, the chairman was not in a position to comment about it because there is no update. Colin Gale says it can only be a good thing that the chairman is a long-standing fan of the club. Nicola Beaton said it's great to have a chairman so passionate about the club, a true fan, not just a business venture for him. Neil Sinclair says, I think as much as things are going well at the club, Dave is trying to keep the heat. Neil 709 says that he can't wait for the beginning of the season and get back to Pittodrie. David McLennan has said, hopefully we're not finished with the transfer dealings yet. We lost a fair amount of starters at the end of the season. West Coast Dawn says, we're lucky to have DC in charge. Neil Sinclair says, I really hope the pathway does bring the younger lads closer to the first team. I'd really like to see more from Fletcher Boyd and Alfie Bavidge. David Swinton says the chairman has developed the club exceptionally well. 12,000 young fans, Pittodrie full most weeks, and winning the cup is evidence of what has been achieved. Red Army says 2.2 million is huge for Aberdeen if buying talent versus taking a higher risk and investing long game. So do see that point. Delighted to see that so many of you actually enjoyed the interview as well. Thank you for all the really nice comments. Hugh Clark says, good evening all. I still can't believe that we won the Scottish Cup. Keep your comments coming in. We'd be delighted to get more of you on. Neil Sinclair says, does anybody think that Jack Milne has cemented his position in defence after his performance in the Scottish Cup? So keep those comments and thoughts coming in. While you do that, just let me remind you that Ali Beg AB TV is also sponsored by and supported by Quipco International, who service the oil and gas industry. They have a purpose-built repair facility in Abu Dhabi, where their headquarters are. Customer supplied drill pipe and tubulars. That's what they're there for. They also manufacture a wide range of fishing equipment, including junk mills, taper mills, watermelon mills, whipstock hydraulic packers, and so much more. If you're interested in their operational services, all you have to do is get in touch. www.quipco.com and sales@quipco.com. And thank you, as always, to Alan Cameron at Quipco for his continued support with me here on Ali Beg ABTV. Let me see if there's any more comments coming in. Simon Roy says that he thinks in response to the Jack Milne post that I think Jack will be a future club captain. Kenneth Merchant says, hopefully we'll sign an established player who knows the league. 5 project signings is risky. David McLennan is reminding everybody that we will get some sell-on money if Bojan Miovski moves on from Genoa. Elfidello says, hopefully we get a proven goal scorer in, though it won't be easy or cheap. Simon Roy came back to say, think we just need a striker. Seen Ude mentioned today. Yeah, there's some reports in the newspaper today about Ude de Bag. Potentially, could there be a clause where he could possibly come back to the football club on loan? He has gone back and he has played for his parent club. Colin Gale came back on to say, Dave Cormack mentioned the 1970 Cup final. It was a great day for me as a young supporter. Ross Sangster's asking me, on a personal level, what do you think of Europe next season? Good or a stretched squad? So this is what I would say. When we played in the Conference League under Barry, it was quite evident that after every Thursday we played on the Sunday, that we didn't win any points. We really struggled. And Hearts did exactly the same the season before. And I think it's very obvious that for us to be able to compete in Europe at a group stage level and then compete domestically just a few days later, we need a very strong squad. We need depth. And I think at the moment, the strategy that the club are putting in place is absolutely the right thing to do. To be able to fill nearly all positions if needs be. So I think at the moment, I would say what they're doing is absolutely spot on, because it's going to be a means of us to be able to cope with European football and domestic football all at the same time. Gavin Mera says, he would take Ude back in a heartbeat. Neil Sinclair is simply asking the question, is Kevin Nisbet still in the mix as a potential return to the club? I have to be honest, I would love the club to try and do a deal for Kevin Nisbet. I'm just not sure it's going to work. A few of you here have just come back to say how much you liked Ude de Bag. Musical Box says, I don't think Girona will want to sell Bojan just now. Kenneth Merchant, in response to the squad under Barry Robson, says Barry never used the squad. He felt that he was a little bit out of his depth. Colin Gale is asking, should we sign another left back? I'm not sure. I think we're okay there. I think, Graham Shinney can fill in there. We've got the new lad that came in. From what I can understand, is making a really good impression already. Mark Lamont says, after years of British and Irish players under Derek, we've got a real mix of nationalities. Can you see us signing any Scots, or will these come from the academy? Well, I have to be honest, I would love to see us develop from within. I think when you look at the club historically, we've always had players come through the ranks into the first team and establish themselves as first team players. And I would like to see that trend continue. Okay, so the Musical Box says, we brought in an interesting mix of players so far, and he's excited about our newest signing. And I think I've managed to figure out how to pronounce his surname. Ashishi, I think it was, if my memory serves me correct. Somebody sent me a video of him, and I think it's Ashishi. I think. Can't quite remember. Neil Sinclair says, Ude and Kevin, please. That will certainly see us in contention. Right, guys, so we've come up to about 50 minutes. I'm going to call it a night. So thank you so much for everybody who's tuned in tonight. I was delighted to see so many of you on. And as I said, I really hope you enjoyed the interview with Dave tonight. I hope he was able to shed some light on some of the questions that you may have had. So we will continue to do shows here on Alibeg ABTV. Just keep an eye on my socials. I'm going to be planning a show next week, just a catch-up show to see how things are going at the football club and just bring everybody up to speed. There's a couple of more quotes just come in here. Just let me get them on. Robert Fowler says, slightly anxious on the lack of challenging pre-season games for the first team. It takes a long time to get up to match fitness, especially for Europe. Brian Stott said, absolutely no doubt about Dave Cormack and his board and management team are the right people to take the club forward. The explanation about the new youth strategy was informative. Aushish. Aushish. That's it. That's how you pronounce the boy's name. Aushish. Thank you, Musical Box. You'll do for me. Right, guys, that's it. We're going to call it a night. So thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and keep an eye on my socials, as I said. And I'll see you all again very soon. Stand free.